year is 1977. First wave punk was just finishing its run, and new wave was just on the horizon. 2 years earlier, New York had officially run out of money, and later that year a recession hit the Ford administration and left New York City in shambles, and the Lower East Side looked like a bomb had been dropped on it. The city was falling apart. The recession caused low rents, and these low rents caused crime rates to skyrocket. To quote the artist James Chance from the documentary Blank City,
straight people were trying to escape New York, so the only people that wanted to come to New York were like freaks, and crazy people.
Debbie Harry of the new wave band Blondie also said from the same film,
I can remember doing interviews in the 70s and people saying, how can you live in New York? It's so dangerous and so scary. And I thought to myself, well, good, then don't come.
No wave was not characterized very easily. However, some of the genres it touched on included funk, jazz, blues, punk, avant-garde, and experimental. Some of the most recognizable aspects of this music, though, are its nihilistic lyrics and abrasive, vigorating sounds. The lineup of bands that came out of the dark in this era included James Chance and the Contortions, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, Mars, DNA, and Theoretical Girls. The New York duo Suicide, formed in 1970, was a precursor to the new wave scene. Alan Vega's loose, unhinged voice led to the babbled voices of Mars and DNA. Suicide's intentions were to disgust the listener. A prime example is their 10.5-minute song Frankie Teardrop, which entails the story of a Vietnam veteran descending into insanity.
Frankie can't make enough money.
Some claim the song goes up near the top of the list for most distressing pieces of music.
Sneaking round in a blue jumpsuit.
In 1975, Mars formed, making them the first band of the scene to form, and they are one of the most experimental of the period too. They only recorded about 15 songs in the studio and disbanded in 1978. Their short lifetime was important in making the transition from New York punk to no wave. Teenage Jesus and the Jerks were a blip in the scene. Only about 12 songs were recorded, and they added up to only 18 minutes and 45 seconds. Don't let this lead away from the fact that their contributions were valued. Their work was some of the most brutal in no wave. Lydia Lunch, the vocalist, made it her mission to become the embodiment of post-Vietnam America's tortured, tattered soul. The Jerks' music portrayed a sense of anger, hatred, and nihilism. Lydia absolutely hated punk rock and rock norms. She wanted to destroy rock bit by bit and tear it down, and the Jerks did just that. Perhaps the strangest thing Lydia did was play slide guitar with knives and/or beer bottles. The year after the Jerks came into the scene, one of the most different groups formed. This group was James Chance and the Contortions. They were a fusion no-wave group. The Contortions recorded songs with jazz and funk elements to them. They were also one of the first groups to release a full studio album. This is a key aspect of the scene. No one really sat down and just listened to the sounds of New York. Everyone was out and about seeing these groups live. In 1977, another notable group came into the picture, Theoretical Girls. Theoretical Girls hardly put out any recordings in their existence. They only released one single called US Millie, which let their inspiration influence from modern classical music shine through. Funnily enough, the members of Theoretical Girls were the only ones of the scene that knew how to play their instruments. As well as that, he actually sang vocals, which was bizarre for no wave.
You sit on the beach with your ping pong beach and you pick your nose.
You got me. You got me.
They pushed the boundaries of no wave, making songs with sounds of punk, power pop, and classical modern.
Gets like in a little bitty city. Hey, Billy Bitty, gonna get some titty.
DNA came out from the shadows in 1978-ish and proved themselves as one of the wildest groups of their time. Their lead vocalist, Ardo Lindsay, had the most aggressive voice of no wave. DNA was perhaps the most abrasive and dissonant group from the lineup. They also released music relatively late in the era. Their first EP came out in 1981.
Pump it up. I'm taking possession. I'm too
In the summer of 1980, no wave had fizzled out. The Jerkses had parted ways in 1979, and DNA and Theoretical Girls would disband in the next 2 years. The help of state emergency relief lifted the city out of the pit of bankruptcy, and the Lower East Side was being restored. Two groups that came post-no wave were directly inspired from the era. They were Sonic Youth and Swans. Sonic Youth formed in 1981, and Swans formed in 1982. Swans' early guitar sound was clearly inspired and developed thanks to Theoretical Girls.
You got me. You got me.
Swans was a dynamic, changing musical act that was always producing different material every 3 or so years. Their first incarnation heard on their debut EP and album was No Wave. Second incarnation heard on their second album was Noise Rock. Third incarnation heard on their third and fourth album was Industrial. On their fourth incarnation, heard on their fifth album, was Gothic Rock. On their fifth incarnation, heard on their sixth, seventh, and eighth album, was Neo-Folk.
I'll drink the moonlight from your hand.
On their sixth incarnation, heard on their ninth album, was Experimental Rock. And on their final incarnation, in the original time being together heard on their 10th album, was Post-Rock and Drone. When they reformed in 2010, their output changed to long-winded progressive rock. Swans was ambitious to try different things, and they excelled in every genre they tried. Sonic Youth was briefly no wave for their first couple albums and EPs until they shifted to noise rock, and then more importantly, alternative and indie rock. Their album Confusion is Sex was no wave and noise rock. Mars had patched the hole between New York punk and no wave, and Sonic Youth patched the adjacent hole from no wave to alt rock. They later that decade recorded the masterwork Daydream Nation in 1988. The album is so highly looked upon that its average rating is 4.65 out of 5. New York City for decades to come was viewed as the ideal creative workspace. Successful bands of today from the Big Apple include Dive, LCD Sound System, Interpol, and Animal Collective.
A peace bone got found in the dinosaur wing.
No Wave's lifespan was very short. It only lasted from 1976 to 1980. And it wasn't an easy-to-define style of music. It ranged from jazz, funk, avant-garde, experimental, noise, punk, classical, disco, and industrial. This is why the definition of no wave is skewed and blurred. It's hard to tell what kinds of music was made. No wave is less of a genre, though. It is more of a scene or era of New York's hardships during the late 70s and what the generation of people did with it. The people made New York what it is today and influenced music and independent and underground filmmaking forever.
Everybody's talking about the storm